We are 3 days into 2025 and our team has already won a medal for the year. For the people who are new, my name is Kyriakos and I'm the 4 times national powerlifting champion in Cyprus in the 93 kilo category, and I'm also the co-founder of Strengthblox. We are kicking off the year strong and this is going to be a recap from our first competition for 2025 with our athlete Sven from Germany. We're going to go over stuff like meet strategy, attempt selection, and give you some more details on how we like to think on competition day and how we go on with competitions. And hopefully you'll be able to learn something from this video, something else you can use in your competitions to become a better powerlifter and bring your best performance on the platform. Sven is one of our 93 kilo lifters from Germany and he has been working with us for about 6 months. He came to us with a 692.5 kilo total, which is relatively advanced. And a few months into training with Sven, we started discussing about doing a meet. So we decided to set a high goal and try to qualify for the German Nationals. To qualify for the Nationals in Germany, you need to hit the qualifying total. You don't have to win or anything, you just have to get a total in an official meet, and then you automatically get qualified for Nationals. And it was one of our last chances to qualify for NATS for 2025. And Sven basically needed a 717.5 kilo total to qualify, which was a pretty ambitious goal for his level to add this much weight to his total in such a little time. And we basically began training specifically for this goal. After working with Sven for about 4 to 5 months, he managed to hit the qualifying total in the gym, and he basically added 25 kilos to his total, which for his level is some pretty good progress. Sven is a very hardworking athlete. He did exactly as planned. So we had a planned max in the gym and he hit a 270 kilo squat, which was a 5 kilo PR, a 147.5 kilo bench press, which was also a 5 kilo PR, and he also hit a 300 kilo deadlift, which was a 15 kilo PR, which is crazy. To be honest, a 300 kilo deadlift was not good for competition. It had a bit of ramping, which is basically supporting the bar on your thighs, or at least it looked like that, and it wouldn't pass in a competition. And with that, Sven hit a 717.5 kilo total in the gym, which was what he needed for the Nationals. And what we basically had to do now was to do that again in competition. But for us to hit it, a few things had to happen. First thing is that the prep had to go perfectly. Since he hit the qualifier exactly on the dot, we knew that even if anything threw us off by a few kilos, the qualification would be over. And the second thing that had to happen was that we had to get a good deadlifting for his third attempt. So our plan going in was that in best case scenario, we would leave some kilos in the tank for deadlift, maybe not go for the 300, which was a risky attempt. And in the best case, we would get some more kilos out of squat and bench press, and maybe load up a 295 kilo deadlift so that he would get it for sure without ramping. During his prep, we had 2 obstacles we had to face. The first one was that at around 1 month out, Sven had a planned vacation for 2.5 weeks, and we didn't know what the situation would be like. But when he arrived there and we saw the gym in person, it was pretty obvious that Sven couldn't train for powerlifting there, or at least for Sven's level. The equipment was suboptimal, so we had to adjust the training for a few weeks and went off plan. And the second obstacle we had to overcome was that Sven got sick and we lost some more few days of prep, and he also lost some weight, which affected him and affected his performance. We lost around 3 weeks of prep, but we pushed harder the last few weeks and we managed to almost catch up to 100%. So we started setting our meet strategy. It was very clear why we entered this meet and why Sven wanted to compete in this meet. The goal was basically to qualify. So we set our goals for this meet. Since we were very focused on the qualifier, we had an all or nothing mentality and we set our goals that way. Our first goal was to hit the qualifying total, which was at 717.5 kilos. Our second goal was to finish on the podium, and our third goal was to build Sven's total, maybe get a total PR, play safe, put some safe attempts in, and increase his total. But like I said, since the goal was a qualifier, we knew that our lifts had to be exactly on the limit, not leave any kilos behind, and basically squeeze out every possible kilo from the day. So we had to risk a lot, and we set up our attempts in that way so that we could first get the qualifier and then the rest of the goals. So our attempts were basically gonna look something like this. For the squat, we were gonna open with 245, then move on to 260, and then for his third attempt, we were gonna pick something between 265 and 272.5. For his bench press, we're gonna open with 135, then move on to 145, and then for his third, we will pick something between 147.5 to 152.5. And for his deadlift, we're gonna open light with 255 and then go with 275 and then load up whatever we needed to get the qualifier, which would basically be something like 295 and more. So in the afternoon was Sven's weigh-in. He refueled after his weigh-in, and we went to the warm-up room to start getting ready for the meet. Sven opened up like planned at 245, which basically flew up, so we stick to the plan and we loaded 260 for his second attempt. Then he did his 260 and it looked a bit heavy for a second, a bit slower than he had in training. Our predictions for his third attempt were at 265 to 267.5, and he had a very, very low chance for a 270 kilo squat. But after discussing it with him, Sven was confident that he would get 270, and I knew he can grind, so we loaded up the 270. To be honest, if I didn't take Sven's opinion into consideration, I would load up at 267.5. So we load up 270 and Sven goes for his third attempt. They took a bit too long of a time to give him his... He goes down and it was sadly too heavy. His upper back also rounded in, so he couldn't grind it out. To be honest, if I didn't take Sven's opinion into consideration, I would load up at 267.5, which was basically exactly the weight he could lift on the day. So that's on me for not going with my gut. But since his bench was affected in the past few weeks of prep, I thought it would be a less of a risk to risk on squats than on bench, if that makes sense. So we tried to get some more kilos out of the squat, but it was sadly 2.5 kilos too heavy. So we ended with a 260 kilo squat, which was basically 10 kilos less than what we needed. If this was a 949 meet, I would go with a 267.5 kilo squat and secure 7 more kilos on his total and a 2.5 kilo competition PR. But this was not our first goal, so we risked a lot. But the qualifier was still in reach, so we then needed a 152.5 kilo bench press and a 305 kilo deadlift, which was very difficult to do, but not impossible. We moved on to bench. Sven opened up with 135 like we planned. His opener was slightly heavier than we would like, but we needed a 152.5 kilo bench press for his third, or in worst case scenario, a 150 kilo bench to get the qualifying total. So we loaded up 142.5 for his second, so he would have a stepping stone for his third attempt. He goes out and takes his second attempt at 142.5. His second attempt was sadly at an RP 9.5, and at that moment we realized that the qualifying total was out of reach, and we would need something around a 312.5 kilo deadlift or a 315 kilo deadlift, which was basically impossible. So we loaded up a 145 kilo bench press for his third to try and get 2.5 kilos more on his total. He goes out and takes his third attempt, but it was sadly too heavy for him for that day, and we ended with a 142.5 kilo bench press. His bench press was the most affected by his weight drop. The original plan was to go from 135 to 145, but since his opener was a bit heavy, we went for the smallest second attempt that could also get us his third. But 142.5 was what he could do for the day. We basically had to go off plan because he was not on top form. Again, if this was a 949 meet, we would go with 135, 140, maybe 145. But we needed a stepping stone for a 150 or 152.5 bench, so we left 142.5 in. And by this point, the qualification total was out of reach, so we switched to our second goal, which was to finish on the podium. I went in the warm-up room and I started sketching stuff on the paper to find the best strategy. After bench, Sven was in fourth position, so we started picking which athlete we were going to chase for a chance on the podium. The athlete in second place was out of reach. We needed to deadlift 20 kilos heavier than him to knock him off the podium, and he was opening 25 kilos heavier than us. So in best case scenario that he only got his opener, we would still need a 300 kilo deadlift, which was a risk, so he was out of reach. We had to pick either Rafael or Julian to try and chase for a podium finish. Because Rafael chipped the bench press record, he was 20.5 kilos ahead of us. he was weighing heavier, so we had to match his total to win. Chipping is basically when you add 0.5 kilos or 1 kilo for your next attempt, which is available only for records, regional records, national records, international records. And because we couldn't chip for deadlifts, and we needed to deadlift 22.5 kilos more than him to knock him off the podium. Our predictions for his certs, in best case scenario, were first attempt at 230, second attempt at 250, and third attempt at 265. And in that case, we would need a 287.5 kilo deadlift, which for Sven was a pretty manageable goal. And our second option was Julian. He also weighed in more than us, so we had to also match his total. He was 10 kilos ahead of us with subtotal, so we needed to deadlift 10 kg more than him to knock him off the podium. He was opening at 275, so our predictions were for his first attempt 275, second attempt 290, and third attempt 300. So Sven would need around 310 kilos to knock him off the podium, which was pretty hard to do. We put Rafael in our sights and we started chasing him to knock him off the podium and get third place. Sven opened with 255 kilos, very conservative deadlift to log in his total. He had a very comfortable opener, so we moved on as planned to 275. Sven took his second with 275, it was still very easy. By this point we were 27.5 kilos in the lead. Rafael loaded up 255 for his third and we needed a minimum of 277 to secure third place. We could play safe and go for a 277.5 kilo deadlift to log the win, but because we were 100% sure that Sven would log out the 290 kilo deadlift and we wanted him to match his total PR and get a plus 5 kilo competition PR on deadlift, we left it in. And Sven got a 290 kilo for his third attempt, which also secured him the third place, and we met our second goal for the day. After locking in his third attempt on deadlifts, Sven won third place. He matched his total PR with a 749 and a bad day, and he got a new deadlift competition PR of plus 5 kilos. Like I said, we could have played it safe and go for 949 and built a better total, but since our goal was a qualifier, we went all in and we risked a lot for this competition. In his prep, he added 25 kilos to his total in 4 to 5 months, which is very successful. In general, we think the prep went good and the competition also went good. We didn't meet our first goal, but we got our secondary goal, which we're also satisfied with that. The qualification will have to wait a bit more, but Sven is a hard worker and he's a very good athlete. And we think that qualifying is just a matter of time for him. For me as a coach, this meet was a good opportunity to work on the scoreboard and my meet strategy and attempt selection in a low pressure environment. And my biggest mistake was basically not going with my gut and putting a too heavy third attempt for squats. I hope you found this video helpful and I hope you learned something. And if you like these types of detailed videos, let me know in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do. This was it for the day, our first video for the year, and I'll see you on the next one.